Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out A Horse with No Name Is Not What You Thought.
Some songs come out of nowhere, some take months or even years before they're ready, and some sort of sneak in. Strange little ideas that somehow turn into something massive. And that's what happened with A Horse with No Name, a simple song about the desert, which became one of the most iconic folk rock tracks of the 70s.
I've been through the desert on a horse with no name.
But it's had its fair share.
Y'all be sure to go to Music Mongoose and like and subscribe. I do enjoy this song when it comes on the radio. It's a good driving song, you know. I don't know what it's about. I don't even remember the lyrics, other than that part we just heard. Curious to know what's going, what are you, what? He's right about songs the way they come. I think it comes from the other side. I think dead people give us songs, y'all. Dead people. Or maybe it's just some brain channeling, like neurotransmitter, potassium and sodium lining up in just the right way that makes a song come out really easy. I don't know. I wish I knew, but I don't. Anyway, again, be sure to go to Music Mongoose and like and subscribe, and maybe give me a like and subscribe right here if you feel like it. I don't know. Please, I need help.
But it's had its fair share of drama. People have argued about its meaning. They've made accusations of drug references. It was even banned from some radio stations. And there's even confusion over who really wrote it. Today we're looking at the strange, misunderstood story of A Horse with No Name by America. And also what happened to the band afterwards. Before this song, America was just three kids in England playing guitars.
What?
The band, obviously, not...
Hang on. America were British? I always forget about the band America. I think because the name is America. And it like, I don't know, it gets lost in the shuffle, I guess. What does he mean they were British? Three British kids playing guitar? Before we get into the song, I do want to read the lyrics. Should I read the lyrics now or should I wait? I'm going to read them now. On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rings. Cool. The first thing I met was a fly with a buzz, and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot, and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. Okay. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert you can remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. So far I'm hearing like conversing with nature, getting away from other people and just being alone with your thoughts and connecting with nature and maybe like God, whatever, Satan, whatever you're into. La 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 la. Gotta be thorough and accurate. After 2 days in the desert sun, my skin began to turn red. After 3 days in the desert fawn, I was looking at a riverbed. And the story it told of a river that flowed made me sad to think it was dead. Oh, wow, yeah. Mortality, passage of time. That's what I'm getting from that. You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. And the desert, you can remember. After 9 days, I let the horse run free, 'cause the desert had turned to sea. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rings. That's part of the first verse, right? After 9 days, I let the horse run free, 'cause the desert had turned to sea. Oh, was there a flood? This is getting biblical now. We're talking about floods. But then he repeats the end of the first verse. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There were sand and hills and rings. Like, it's still okay. That's what I get from that. The ocean is a desert with its life underground and a perfect disguise above. Under the cities lies a heart made of ground, but the humans will give no love. The ocean is a desert with its life underground. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. The ocean is just a desert with water on top, y'all. It's still there. And a desert is just an ocean without water. That's what I get. Like, it's all the same. This is kind of Buddha. It feels like everything is the way it should be. Everything is the same. It's like we're all just light particles, or, you know, that's what I get from that. Under the cities lies a heart made of ground, but the humans will give no love. Yeah, humans treat the ground like You see, I've been through the desert on a horse. Great lyrics. I gotta back up because he said before this song, America was just some kids in England playing guitars. I don't know the story about this band. Are they British and they just call themselves America?
And also what happened to the band afterwards. Before this song, America was just 3 kids in England playing guitars. The band, obviously, not the country. They were Jerry Beckley, Dewey Bunnell, and Dan Peake. 3 American kids all living in London because their dads were stationed there as part of the US Air Force. They met at school and bonded over music. They were all into the really big American folk rock acts like the Byrds, Simon and Garfunkel, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. They rehearsed constantly, working on harmonies and acoustics, arrangements, and started writing original songs really early on.
They sound like those influenced, don't they? Crosby, Stills, and Nash, the Byrds. Yeah, the Byrds always seem British to me, but they are American. They're from San Francisco, I believe. That's what people in San Francisco speak like. Now I kind of understand why they call themselves America. They were 3 American military brats in England. I'm curious to know what kind of life that feels like. Like, what kind of upbringing is that? To be an American on an American military base, but you're not in America? I wonder what that does to a kid's brain. Might be good, might be healthy.
They rehearsed constantly, working on harmonies and acoustics, arrangements, and started writing original songs really early on. And pretty quickly, they got good. By late 1969, they were performing together under the name America, obviously a nod to their roots, but it also helped them stand out in the London scene. America is an easy name to remember, especially outside of America.
Okay.
In 1970, they got a big break. After some successful gigs and a bit of radio playtime, Warner Brothers signed them, and they set about writing and recording their first album.
So they were playing around in 69. I think of them as much later. Maybe, I mean, this is the beginning. And in 70, they got a record deal with Warner Brothers. That's really good.
It was self-titled, and the band recorded it mostly as a trio, using some session musicians to fill out the other parts. Half of it was done on borrowed guitars because they didn't have the money for high-end instruments. However, the label felt like they had more in the tank.
That's actually normal to use someone else's guitar for a recording because some guitars just sound better for recording. It's more about intonation and how in tune it can stay, because you usually have to retune a guitar after every take, you know? And sometimes a guitar that doesn't sound good acoustically actually sounds really good on a recording because of the distortion of the frequencies. Guitar acoustically, when you hear it with your ears, if it has a lot of low end, that can sound really good and you feel it in your body. But then on a recording, that low end is too much and it's like, you got to pull it out. So it's kind of like you struggle with it. You want one that sounds nice and even through a microphone. Also depends on what microphones you have. Okay, I'm rambling again. America.
Fill out the other parts. Half of it was done on borrowed guitars because they didn't have the money for high-end instruments. However, the label felt like they had more in the tank and urged them to put together more songs. They were looking, in particular, for a strong single. And it was a good call because this was a turning point for the band.
You always hear that the record label person says, we don't hear a single. That's even in a Tom Petty song. Into the Great Wide Open, the A&R guy said, I don't hear a single. That means everything's going just like it should normally be going because that's normal.
The trio revisited a tune they'd sidelined during the recording under the working title Desert Song. You know where this is going.
Okay,
Initially, they didn't think it was single material. Simple as that. It didn't start with some grand idea. It was just a little sketch written by Bunnell in 1971. At the time, he was trying to capture a feeling because he was homesick. He'd grown up in California and Arizona with a landscape of long highways and blue skies and long drives in the desert with good music on the radio, and he wanted to write something to capture that nostalgia because, let's face it, you're not getting any of that in London.
Oh, wow. That's exactly, like I was saying, that song's a good driving song. I picture driving through the desert. Yeah, I drive across the Mojave Desert maybe once or twice a year. I go to Arizona a lot. And it is easy to connect with nature. You can see so far for miles and miles and miles, and there'll be a huge mountain out in the distance, and the highway goes towards the mountain, and eventually you get to the mountain, but it takes a lot longer than it seems like it should. So you just have this feeling of being really small in this huge space.
And all it was at first was 2 chords and a repeating, relaxing melody. At the same time, he started experimenting with more surreal lyrics. He was inspired by nature and themes of spirituality, and he wanted to strip back everything to just a man, a landscape, and a journey. And a horse, of course. The song followed a lone rider crossing the desert, and as we all know, he rides a horse with no name. He's trying to escape the rain, literally, but also metaphorically. Around him are plants and birds and rocks and things. It really isn't a complicated story, but it really had a certain feel to it. And sometimes that's all a song needs. It has changed for me as I've gotten older. The lyric writing and imagery takes on new meaning. It also used to be more about the sights and sounds and physical aspect of the desert that I loved. Now it takes on more of a feel of isolation and contemplating your navel type stuff.
Navel type stuff? What is that? Like your navel? Normal accumulated debris like lint and dead skin, hardened collections of this debris called navel stones. I don't think that's what we're... I feel like maybe he means like, your existentialism. Like primal. Navel as in like a baby, like your core being or something like that. The lyrics are really good. They're very metaphorical. They're very poetic. It's easy to extract different meanings from what they are at face.
When the band's management team heard it, they loved it. And the song went from being not single-worthy to, well, being their new single. Awesome. And so they went to Morgan Studios in London to record it. By the way, if you want to watch this video and all my other videos completely ad-free, you can support me at patreon.com/musicmongoose.
Be sure to go to Music Mongoose and like and subscribe. Maybe go to his Patreon, become a patron. Y'all, I also have a Patreon. I really don't do anything special there. There's no extra stuff. There's a couple videos up there right now, but I don't want to, that's not guaranteed. You're just helping support me. You're buying caffeine for me. What were we doing? Morgan Studios in London. Show me on that. It's probably closed like most great studios are. It was in Northwest London. Clients include The Cure, Jethro Tull, The Kinks, Paul McCartney. Who's that? Yes, Black Sabbath, Pink Floyd, Donovan, Joan Armatrading, Cat Stevens, Rod Stewart. Rod Stewart, UFO, and many more. I guess this is what it looked like on the inside. Pretty typical 60s, 70s studio. Okay.
Anyway, back to the song. According to Discogs, the debut album was initially released at the end of 1971 in Europe and America. This was about a month after Horse with No Name had already been released as their debut single.
Okay.
However, the album didn't include Horse with No Name. What? The song was initially treated as a non-album single. However, the single was building serious steam. It was performing incredibly well in Europe and also climbing the Billboard charts in the USA. And by March 1972, it was #1. It stayed there for 3 weeks straight.
Nice.
So they decided to reissue the album, this time with Horse with No Name on the track list.
Okay, interesting. That trick worked for the Beatles very well. They would not put their singles on their albums. They wanted to give the album an identity of its own and give the fans their money's worth, not repeating a release. Okay. It worked for them. But yeah, people are just going to go buy the single and not the album. It's a tough call. But I think they made the right choice by reissuing it.
In fact, they added in a line of text to the album cover on the second release. Includes a horse with no name. And
nice.
It did much better than the first release. It went to #1 and went platinum.
There it is.
That is the power of a solid single. One song turned them from obscure folk artists to, well, superstars.
Wow.
But things got a bit more complicated afterwards, because when the song first hit the radio, a lot of listeners thought it was Neil Young. The voice, the the phrasing,
Does
the odd
sound like him.
lyrics, the acoustic sound, it all very much sounded like Neil Young.
Does.
But Neil Young had nothing to do with the song, of course, other than being an inspiration to a young Dewey Bunnell. Bunnell never denied the influence. He spent years listening to Neil Young, studying his records, soaking in the sound. I never fully shied away from the fact that I was inspired by him. I think it's in the structure of the song as much as in the tone of his voice. It did hurt a little because we got some pretty bad backlash.
Oh.
But there was another bump in the road after...
Yeah, I hear it in like the phrasing of the melody sounds like Neil Young, and the voice too.
A little because we
tone of
got
the
some
voice.
pretty bad backlash. But there was another bump in the road after this song was released because people mistakenly thought it had a hidden message. In American slang, horse was a street name for heroin. And suddenly this desert trip didn't sound so innocent. It sounded like a drug metaphor. And in fairness, this was the 70s. There was plenty of songs about drugs around, but this wasn't one of them. It was pure coincidence. Nevertheless, radio stations started pulling it from rotation, and the band were understandably baffled. And when people weren't busy misinterpreting the lyrics, they were mocking them instead. The heat was hot, there were plants and birds and rocks and things, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain.
Yeah, that did trip me up when I read the heat is hot, but if you look at the deeper meaning, it's not stupid, is what I'm trying to say.
Even at the time, critics had a go at these lyrics, but that was part of the point. Remember, he wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. He had a vision in mind, a feeling in mind for this song. He knew what he liked, he knew what he wanted, and did it. And that's why it works. It's strange, but it really sticks in your head. You can let it play in the background and drift off, or you can really listen and get lost in the oddness of this song. Either way, it's memorable and really captures that feeling he set out to capture. And by the way, America wasn't a one-hit wonder. You might have first thought that, but their next single, I Need You, also made the top 10.
You know I need you.
Their second album, Homecoming, gave them Ventura Highway, another big hit. By 1974, they were charting regularly in the US and the UK. And then there was a twist. There's always a twist, isn't there? They started working with George Martin. Of course, he was the man that produced some of the Beatles' best albums. He even got a knighthood for services in music.
Nice.
Between 74 and 79, he produced 5 America albums, plus a live album. And he helped them broaden and mature their sound as the years went by. And it worked. Sister Golden Hair hit number 1 in 1975.
Sister golden hair surprise.
Daisy Jane became a radio regular.
Do you really love me? I hope you do.
So yeah, far from one-hit wonders. In 1977, things shifted again because Dan Peake left the band. He'd had a religious awakening and wanted to make Christian music, so off he went to do that. Bunnell and Beckley carried on as a duo. The big hits slowed, but they weren't quite finished. In 1982, You Can Do Magic brought them back into the charts and also onto MTV. It reached number 8 in the US.
You can do magic.
And after that, the band settled into a steady rhythm of touring and releasing albums and kept a loyal following. Sadly, Dan Peake passed away in 2011. And another band people mistakenly think was a one-hit wonder was Europe with The Final Countdown. Remember that song? That's got a great story behind it too. Click over there for that one next.
America and Europe. There's some more band names to be had. Wow, I didn't know they worked with George Martin. I recognized a couple of those other songs. I didn't realize that was them. It just sounds like songs you hear on the radio when you're a child sitting in the back seat. Top songs. A Horse with No Name, of course. Sister Golden Hair. Ventura Highway. Those guitars sound good. Yo, be sure to go to Music Mongoose and like and subscribe. I guess that's the problem with having really vague lyrics. They can be applied to anything and get a negative connotation and be censored. Come on. Well, y'all, I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see y'all next time.